Welcome, dear listeners, to another episode of Sleepless History. Today, we will embark on an intriguing journey back to the medieval ages, a time when the concept of wealth and status was intricately woven into the very fabric of society. Picture for a moment the grand estates, the lavish banquets, and the intricate social hierarchies that defined life for the rich in medieval times. To be a wealthy individual in the medieval era was to inhabit a world steeped in privilege. The nobility, lords, and ladies enjoyed lives filled with luxury, power, and influence. Their homes were not merely places of residence, but rather sprawling estates, often fortified castles that served as both a shelter and a symbol of their status. These grand structures, with their towering walls and impressive battlements, were designed to impress and intimidate in equal measure. Inside these castles, one could find opulence that contrasted sharply with the lives of the peasantry. The great halls were adorned with tapestries depicting heroic tales and family lineage, while the floors were covered in rich carpets that added warmth and color to the stone interiors. Large, wooden tables dominated the dining areas where feasts were held. Here, the wealthy indulged in an array of delicacies, from roasted meats to exotic fruits and fine wines. The abundance of food was not merely sustenance. It was a demonstration of status, a way to showcase one's wealth to guests and rivals alike. The social calendar of a rich medieval person was filled with events and gatherings. Tournaments and jousts were popular, drawing crowds from near and far. These events were not only thrilling displays of skill and bravery, but also opportunities for the elite to flaunt their wealth. Knights, adorned in shining armor, competed for glory, and the spectators, often the nobility themselves, would bet lavish sums on their favored champions. The rich were also patrons of the arts. Illuminated manuscripts, intricate sculptures, and elaborate paintings flourished under their patronage. Artists and craftsmen were commissioned to create works that reflected the wealth and sophistication of their patrons. The art of the time often depicted religious themes, but it also celebrated the grandeur of life among the elite. This patronage was a means of solidifying one's legacy, ensuring that their name would be remembered long after they had departed. Education was another privilege reserved for the wealthy. While the lower classes toiled in the fields, the children of the rich were educated in the arts, literature, and philosophy. Tutors were brought in to teach the young nobles, who were expected to be well versed in various subjects, from Latin to the intricacies of courtly manners. This education was crucial, as it prepared them for the responsibilities of leadership and governance. Clothing, too, was a mark of wealth in the medieval world. The rich adorned themselves in garments made from luxurious fabrics, such as silk and velvet, often dyed in vibrant colors that were expensive to produce. Fur trim and intricate embroidery were common, signaling not only wealth but also a keen sense of fashion. Accessories like jewelry and ornate belts completed the attire, further enhancing their status. The wealthy were expected to dress in a manner that reflected their rank, as clothing served as a visual representation of one's place in the social hierarchy. However, this luxurious lifestyle was not without its complexities. The wealthy were often embroiled in political intrigue, as power struggles among the nobility could lead to conflict and betrayal. Alliances were forged through marriage, with families seeking to bolster their influence and control through strategic unions. The politics of the time were fraught with danger, and the rich had to navigate a treacherous landscape where loyalty could shift like the wind. The burdens of wealth also extended to the responsibilities of land ownership. The rich were tasked with overseeing vast estates, managing resources, and ensuring the well-being of their serfs and vassals. While they enjoyed the fruits of their labor, they were also expected to provide protection and justice to those who lived on their lands. This duality of privilege and responsibility created a complex dynamic, as the wealthy had to balance their desires with the needs of those beneath them. Religion played a significant role in the lives of the rich, as it did for all medieval people. The church was a powerful institution, and the nobility often aligned themselves with it to strengthen their own authority. Many wealthy individuals donated generously to religious establishments, commissioning churches and monasteries to be built in their honor. This not only served as a means of securing their place in the afterlife, but also reinforced their status in the eyes of society. Despite the grandeur of their lives, the rich were not immune to the challenges of the medieval world. The threat of war loomed large as rival factions vied for power and territory. Wealth could attract envy, and the rich were often targets for raids or uprisings. Thus, the castles and estates that symbolized their opulence also served as fortifications against potential threats. In times of crisis, the wealthy were expected to be leaders. They would rally their vassals and serfs, providing not just military support, but also resources to endure hardship. This expectation of leadership was intertwined with their wealth. Their status demanded action in times of need, and often their ability to maintain loyalty depended on their willingness to protect and provide for their people. As we delve deeper into the intricate tapestry of medieval life, we discover that the experiences of the wealthy were not monolithic. Regional differences, cultural practices, and individual choices all played a role in shaping how wealth was experienced. In some areas, the rich might have been more engaged with their local communities, while in others, they could have been more insular, focusing solely on their own estates and interests. In conclusion, the life of a rich person in medieval times was a complex interplay of luxury, responsibility, and power. They enjoyed privileges that allowed them to live in opulence and influence, yet they were also bound by the expectations and challenges their status brought. The medieval rich navigated a world filled with both splendor and strife, leaving a legacy that would echo through the ages. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of medieval wealth. Until next time, may your nights be filled with the whispers of history. As we continue to unravel the intricacies of life as a wealthy individual in medieval times, it is essential to delve into the everyday routines that punctuated this opulent existence. The day-to-day lives of the rich were marked by a blend of leisure, duty, and social engagements, all intricately woven into the larger tapestry of medieval society. Imagine waking up in a grand chamber, the soft light of dawn filtering through leaded glass windows. The wealthy would often rise later than the working class, indulging in the luxury of a leisurely morning. Their chambers were furnished with fine linens, and the warmth of a roaring fire would chase away the morning chill. Servants would attend to their needs, preparing warm baths and dressing them in the latest fashions, often involving layers of fine fabrics and accessories that showcased their social standing. Breakfast, if it could be called that, was typically a simple affair, often consisting of bread and ale or wine. However, for the wealthy, the first meal of the day was but a prelude to the larger feasts that would follow. The real social events began later in the day, where the rich gathered to share extravagant meals. These gatherings were central to their social life, where alliances were formed and rivalries played out. The dining experience for the wealthy was nothing short of a theatrical performance. Long tables were adorned with the finest silverware and platters overflowing with food. The wealthy often enjoyed a variety of meats. Roast swan, peacock, and venison were common delicacies. Spices were used liberally, a testament to their wealth, for they were costly and often imported from distant lands. These meals were accompanied by performances, whether from musicians or jesters, creating an atmosphere of celebration and camaraderie. After the feast, the focus would shift to leisure activities. The rich were not merely idle. Their time was filled with pursuits that reflected their status. Hunting was a favored pastime, particularly among the nobility. They would take to the forests with hounds and horses, engaging in hunts that symbolized both skill and dominance over nature. This activity was not only a source of enjoyment, but also a means of asserting control over the land and showcasing their prowess. Falconry, too, was a popular sport among the wealthy. Owning and training birds of prey required significant resources and knowledge, making it a distinguished hobby. The art of falconry was often seen as an emblem of nobility, further enhancing the social status of those who indulged in it. These pursuits were not merely for entertainment. They were steeped in tradition and were often depicted in art and literature of the time. As we examine the social engagements of the wealthy, one cannot overlook the importance of court life. The courts of kings and queens were vibrant centers of culture and politics. The rich would often travel to these courts, where they would seek favor from the monarch, engage in political maneuvering, and participate in the arts. Courtly life was characterized by elaborate ceremonies, dances, and competitions, offering the wealthy opportunities to display their wealth and influence. The rich also had a significant impact on the world of religion. As patrons of the church, they often financed the construction of grand cathedrals and monasteries. These religious structures were not only places of worship, but also served as symbols of their devotion and piety. They would attend services regularly, and their participation in religious life often included hosting lavish celebrations for feast days and other significant occasions. The connection between wealth and religion was a powerful one. For many wealthy individuals, their fortunes were tied to their faith, and they believed that their generosity would secure their place in heaven. This belief led to a culture of giving, where the rich would contribute not only to their local churches, but also to charitable causes, aiding the poor in their communities. Yet, amidst all the splendor, the lives of the wealthy were not devoid of challenges. The medieval world was rife with uncertainty, and the rich were often targets of envy and conflict. Power struggles between noble families could lead to violent confrontations. The threat of invasion or rebellion loomed large, and the wealthy had to be ever vigilant, ensuring their estates were fortified and adequately defended. Moreover, personal tragedy was not uncommon. Marriages among the wealthy were often arranged for political gain rather than love. These unions could lead to complicated relationships, with many finding themselves trapped in unhappy marriages. The pressure to produce heirs weighed heavily, and the loss of a child, which was tragically frequent due to disease and poor medical care, could lead to deep sorrow that overshadowed their wealth. Additionally, as we examine the dynamics of wealth, it is crucial to consider the role of servants and serfs. The rich relied heavily on a vast network of servants who managed their households. These individuals, often drawn from lower social classes, played a vital role in maintaining the grand estates. They were responsible for everything from cooking and cleaning to managing the stables and gardens. The lives of these servants, while often filled with hard work and little pay, were in stark contrast to the luxurious lifestyle of their employers. The relationship between the wealthy and their workers was complex. While the rich held power and status, they were also dependent on the labor of those beneath them. A well-run estate required careful management, and many wealthy individuals took their responsibilities seriously, striving to ensure the well-being of their staff. However, this did not negate the underlying social divide that characterized medieval society. The wealthy lived in a world of privilege, while the lower classes toiled to sustain their lavish lifestyles. Leisure activities were also heavily influenced by the prevailing cultural norms of the time. The wealthy often engaged in pursuits that reflected the chivalric ideals of the age. The code of chivalry emphasized virtues such as bravery, honor, and courtesy, particularly towards women. Knightly tournaments and jousting competitions were not only displays of martial skill, but also opportunities for the elite to embody these ideals. The presence of literature and storytelling during this time further enriched the lives of the wealthy. The tales of knights and ladies, filled with adventure and romance, captivated their imaginations. The wealthy often hosted gatherings where bards and minstrels recited these stories, creating a vibrant cultural atmosphere. The importance of storytelling in medieval society cannot be overstated, as it served to both entertain and educate. As we draw closer to the conclusion of this exploration, it is essential to reflect on the enduring legacy of the wealthy in medieval times. Their influence extended far beyond their immediate surroundings, shaping the course of history and the development of societal structures. Many of the castles and estates built during this period stand as monuments to their power, while the art and literature they commissioned continue to be celebrated and studied today. In summary, life as a rich person in medieval times was a tapestry of luxury, responsibility, and cultural engagement. The wealthy navigated a world filled with both grandeur and complexity, leaving a mark on society that resonates through the ages. Their lives, while steeped in privilege, were also shaped by the challenges and expectations of their status. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the opulent yet intricate world of medieval wealth. Until next time, may your nights be filled with the echoes of history. Continuing our exploration of the life of the wealthy in medieval times, it is vital to delve into the family dynamics that characterized the lives of the rich. The concept of family during this period was not solely about personal bonds. It was deeply intertwined with politics, power, and social standing. Marriage among the elite was often a strategic affair. Families would arrange unions to strengthen alliances, secure land, or consolidate power. Love was rarely a consideration. Instead, the focus lay on the benefits the marriage could bring. Daughters were often married off at a young age, sometimes as early as 12, to older men who could offer political advantages or increase their family's wealth. The lives of noble women were significantly shaped by these arrangements, as they were expected to bear children and manage households, all while adhering to the strict societal expectations of femininity. The role of women in the noble class was complex. While they were often seen as pawns in political games, they also wielded considerable influence within their households. A noble woman was responsible for managing the estate when her husband was away, overseeing the staff and ensuring that everything ran smoothly. This responsibility included making decisions about the household's finances, managing food supplies, and even directing agricultural production. It was a role of immense importance, although it was often overshadowed by the more public lives of their male counterparts. In the context of family life, the birth of children was a matter of great significance. Sons were especially valued, as they were necessary to carry on the family name and inherit the estate. The pressure to produce male heirs weighed heavily on noble couples, and the loss of a child, which was tragically common in this era, could lead to profound grief. High infant mortality rates meant that many families experienced the heartbreak of losing children, further complicating the fabric of family life. Education for the children of the wealthy was a reflection of their social standing. Sons were typically sent to live with a guardian or a tutor to receive formal education. They studied subjects such as literature, history, mathematics, and etiquette, preparing them for their roles as leaders and warriors. Daughters, on the other hand, received a more domestic education, focusing on skills deemed essential for managing a household. They learned to sew, cook, and manage servants, all while developing the social graces that would be required of them in courtly life. As these young nobles grew, the expectations placed upon them intensified. Young men were trained in the art of warfare, learning to ride, fight, and lead. They often participated in tournaments, which served not only as training, but also as a means to prove their valor and gain prestige. For young women, the pressure to marry well and produce heirs was paramount. They were often judged by their ability to navigate the complexities of court life, embodying the ideals of beauty and grace, while also being competent managers of their future households. Court life itself played a significant role in shaping the experiences of the wealthy. Attendance at royal courts was not merely a privilege, it was a necessity for those wishing to maintain their status. Here, the rich would engage in a variety of activities, from feasting to entertainment, all while participating in the intricate dance of politics. The court was a place of both opportunity and danger, where alliances could be forged or broken in an instant. Social gatherings, such as balls and banquets, were important venues for the wealthy to display their status. These events were often opulent affairs, filled with music, dancing, and elaborate displays of wealth. The food served was a testament to the host's riches, and the guest list was carefully curated to include those whose favor could benefit the host. Gift-giving was a common practice, with presents exchanged to solidify relationships and demonstrate loyalty. Yet, the life of the rich was not merely filled with leisure and indulgence. It was also characterized by a series of societal expectations and responsibilities. The wealthy were often seen as the protectors of their communities, expected to provide for their vassals and serfs. This included not only the management of their estates, but also the maintenance of law and order. Noble families were often called upon to defend their lands and their people, and their wealth was expected to provide for military endeavors when necessary. In addition to these responsibilities, the wealthy were often patrons of the arts and education, supporting the creation of literature, music, and visual arts that enriched their culture. This patronage was both a reflection of their wealth and a strategic move to enhance their own status. By commissioning works from talented artists, they could demonstrate their sophistication and cultural awareness, thereby solidifying their place in society. The church also played a pivotal role in the lives of the wealthy. Nobles were often deeply involved in the religious life of their communities, using their resources to fund the construction of churches and monasteries. This connection to the church served multiple purposes. It provided spiritual fulfillment, reinforced social status, and offered a means of securing a place in the afterlife. The rich were expected to act as benefactors, and in return, the church would provide prayers for the wealthy's souls, further intertwining the lives of the elite with religious institutions. The relationship between wealth and religion was a double-edged sword. While the rich were often seen as benefactors of the church, their wealth could also attract suspicion. The church preached the virtues of humility and charity, and the wealthy were often reminded of their moral obligations to aid the less fortunate. This created a tension between the desire to display wealth and the societal expectation to be pious and charitable. Many wealthy individuals grappled with this duality, seeking ways to balance their public personas with their private lives. Life in the medieval era was also marked by the looming presence of conflict. Wars, both large and small, could disrupt the lives of the wealthy at any moment. The feudal system meant that noble families were often engaged in territorial disputes, and the threat of invasion was a constant concern. Wealth could provide protection, but it could also attract hostility. The rich had to be prepared to defend their estates and their families, leading to a culture of military readiness that permeated their lives. The impact of disease during this time cannot be overlooked. The medieval period was marked by several outbreaks, including the infamous Black Death in the 14th century. While the wealthy often had better living conditions and access to resources, they were not immune to the ravages of disease. The loss of family members, friends, and vassals created an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. Wealth could provide some degree of protection, but the indiscriminate nature of disease meant that the rich, too, faced mortality. As we reflect on the intricacies of life as a rich person in medieval times, it is clear that their existence was not simply one of luxury and ease. The wealthy navigated a complex landscape filled with social obligations, political intrigue, and personal challenges. Their lives were shaped by a myriad of factors, from familial expectations to the demands of court life, all while grappling with the realities of mortality and societal expectations. In conclusion, the life of a wealthy individual in medieval times was a multifaceted experience, marked by opulence, responsibility, and cultural engagement. They were not merely figures of wealth. They were key players in the intricate social and political tapestry of the medieval world. Their legacies, woven into the fabric of history, continue to influence our understanding of this fascinating period. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the rich in medieval times. Until next time, may your nights be filled with the echoes of history's whispers. As we further explore the lives of the wealthy in medieval times, it's essential to consider the impact of regional differences and the varying expressions of wealth across different cultures and societies. The experiences of the rich were not uniform. They were profoundly influenced by geography, local customs, and the prevailing political landscape. In England, for example, the Anglo-Norman nobility exhibited a unique lifestyle following the Norman conquest in 1066. Castles became the hallmark of wealth and power, serving as fortified residences that reflected the military might of their owners. These stone structures, with their imposing walls and fortified towers, were not only homes, but also symbols of authority. The rich would often gather in their great halls, where they hosted lavish feasts that showcased their culinary wealth. The hierarchy within these halls was strict, with seating arrangements that reflected each guest's social standing, ensuring that everyone understood their place in the social order. Contrastingly, in France, the life of the nobility was characterized by the extravagance of the royal court at places like Versailles, which would later become synonymous with opulence. The French aristocracy engaged in elaborate courtly rituals and maintained a lifestyle filled with fashion and cultural sophistication. Here, the display of wealth was often manifested through extravagant clothing, intricate hairstyles, and luxurious fabrics. The court was a stage for the elite to showcase their power, and the art of conversation, wit, and charm were paramount. In Italy, the wealthy merchant families, such as the Medici in Florence, embodied a different kind of richness. Their power derived not from feudal land ownership, but from commerce and banking. The Medici were patrons of the arts and played crucial roles in the Renaissance, supporting artists like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci. The wealth of Italian nobles was marked by cultural achievements that reshaped Europe's artistic landscape. Their palaces were adorned with exquisite art, and their influence extended beyond their cities, impacting politics and culture across the continent. In the realm of the Holy Roman Empire, both wealth and status were often tied to the ownership of land and titles. The German nobility maintained vast estates that required careful management. The relationship between the wealthy and their vassals was marked by a system of mutual obligation. Nobles had to ensure the protection and welfare of their serfs, who worked the land. This interconnectedness created a sense of responsibility that defined their lives. The German courts were characterized by their own intricacies, with elaborate codes of conduct and symbols of status that dictated interactions among the nobility. Beyond Europe, the concept of wealth in the medieval Islamic world presented another fascinating perspective. Wealthy individuals in the Islamic empires, such as the Abbasid Caliphate, were often influential scholars and patrons of learning. The rich engaged in trade and scholarship, contributing to advancements in science, medicine, and philosophy. Their wealth was often used to build grand mosques and libraries, nurturing a culture of intellectual pursuit. In cities like Baghdad and Cordoba, wealth was reflected not just in material possessions, but in the flourishing of arts and knowledge. The lives of wealthy individuals in medieval times were also marked by a keen awareness of fashion and appearance, serving as a medium through which they conveyed their social status. Clothing was a significant aspect of identity, with the rich often donning garments made from the finest materials. The use of vibrant dyes, some of which were rare and expensive, further distinguished the wealthy from their poorer counterparts. Purple, for example, was a color associated with nobility, as it was derived from the costly dye made from mollusks. The rich would often accessorize with intricate jewelry, showcasing their wealth and taste. Social gatherings, such as weddings and festivals, were opportunities for the rich to display their wealth and reinforce their status within society. These occasions were characterized by elaborate preparations, with feasts that lasted for days and entertainment that included music, dance, and theatrical performances. The wealthy would often invite not just their peers, but also local lords and influential figures, establishing and reinforcing social networks essential for their political ambitions. However, the social fabric of the medieval elite was not without its tensions. Rivalries among noble families could lead to feuds that spanned generations. These conflicts were often exacerbated by the competition for land and titles, leading to violent confrontations. The lives of the wealthy were, therefore, punctuated by a constant need to navigate these tensions, often requiring strategic marriages and alliances to secure their power. Despite their wealth, the rich faced various challenges, including the ever-present threat of rebellion from the lower classes. Discontent among the peasantry could lead to uprisings that threatened the stability of noble households. The wealthy often had to balance their desire for luxury with the need to maintain peace and order within their domains. This sometimes meant engaging in acts of charity or providing for the needs of their serfs to foster loyalty and prevent unrest. Religion, too, played a significant role in the lives of the wealthy. For many, it was a source of moral guidance and a means of legitimizing their status. Nobles often saw themselves as chosen by divine right to rule, and their wealth was viewed as a blessing from God. This belief influenced how they engaged with the church, often leading to significant donations intended to secure their place in the afterlife. The construction of cathedrals and churches was a common practice among the wealthy, providing them with both spiritual fulfillment and a lasting legacy. The intersection of wealth and religion also brought about the phenomenon of pilgrimage. Wealthy individuals often embarked on pilgrimages to holy sites, both as acts of devotion and as opportunities to display their piety. These journeys were significant events, marked by elaborate preparations and the gathering of retinues. The rich would often travel in style, showcasing their wealth through the lavishness of their journeys. As we delve deeper into the daily lives of the wealthy, we also see the role of leisure activities in shaping their identities. Hunting, as previously mentioned, was not just a sport. It was also a way to assert dominance over nature and demonstrate skill. The rich often organized hunting parties, inviting friends and allies to partake in these excursions. The thrill of the hunt was intertwined with camaraderie, serving to strengthen social bonds and establish hierarchies among the participants. Games and tournaments also played a significant role in the recreational lives of the wealthy. Jousting tournaments, in particular, were grand events that drew spectators from near and far. Knights would compete for honor and prizes, while the nobility would gather to watch, socialize, and place bets on their favored competitors. These spectacles were not merely entertainment. They were crucial for maintaining the martial prowess of the nobility and reinforcing the ideals of chivalry. The arts were another avenue through which the wealthy expressed their status and taste. Patronage of artists and musicians was common, with wealthy individuals commissioning works that reflected their values and aspirations. The creation of illuminated manuscripts, intricate tapestries, and beautiful sculptures served not only as personal expression, but also as a means of crafting a public persona. The rich often used art to communicate their piety, power, and cultural sophistication. The role of education among the wealthy cannot be overlooked. Tutors were hired to educate the children of nobles, instilling in them the knowledge and skills necessary for leadership. Sons were taught military strategy and the arts of warfare, preparing them for their future roles as knights and lords. Daughters received education focused on domestic skills and social graces, preparing them for their roles as wives and mothers. This emphasis on education ensured that the elite maintained their status and continued to shape the cultural and political landscape of their time. As our exploration comes to a close, it is essential to reflect on the legacies left behind by the wealthy in medieval times. The grand castles, magnificent cathedrals, and exquisite works of art serve as reminders of their influence. Their lives were marked by complexity, navigating the intricate web of social obligations, political maneuvering, and personal ambitions. The rich in medieval times were not merely figures of wealth. They were central players in the ongoing story of human history, shaping the world in profound ways. In conclusion, the life of a rich person in medieval times was a rich tapestry woven from threads of luxury, duty, and cultural engagement. They lived in a world of opulence, yet their lives were defined by the expectations and challenges that came with their status. Their legacies continue to resonate, offering us insights into a fascinating and complex period in history. Thank you for joining me in this exploration of the medieval elite. Until next time, may your nights be filled with the echoes of history's whispers. As we continue our exploration of the lives of the wealthy in medieval times, we delve deeper into the cultural exchanges that characterized this era. The rich were not only influential figures within their own societies, but also active participants in a broader network of trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange that transcended geographical boundaries. The wealthy in medieval Europe often had the means to travel, allowing them to engage with different cultures and societies. This mobility was facilitated by the establishment of trade routes that connected various regions, from the bustling markets of Venice to the fairs in Flanders. The rich capitalized on these connections, acquiring exotic goods, spices, and luxury items from distant lands, which further enriched their lives and enhanced their social standing. Trade was a significant aspect of wealth accumulation during this period. The rise of merchant classes in cities such as Florence, Ghent, and Bruges marked a shift in the dynamics of power. While the nobility traditionally held power based on land ownership, wealthy merchants began to gain influence through commerce. This economic shift led to a new social hierarchy where the rich merchant class sought to emulate the lifestyles of the nobility. They built grand homes, commissioned art, and hosted lavish banquets, all in an effort to assert their status. The interactions between the nobility and the rising merchant class often led to a fascinating blend of cultures. As the wealthy engaged in trade, they encountered diverse customs, art forms, and philosophies that influenced their own societies. The Crusades, which began in the late 11th century, further intensified these exchanges, bringing the wealthy into contact with the cultures of the Middle East. The return of crusaders with tales of exotic lands and precious goods sparked interest in foreign cultures, leading to a flourishing of ideas and artistic expression. This cultural exchange was vividly reflected in the arts. Wealthy patrons commissioned artists to create works that blended local styles with influences from abroad. The intricate designs seen in Gothic architecture, which flourished during the medieval period, often incorporated elements from Islamic art, resulting in stunning cathedrals and castles that showcased this cultural synthesis. The wealthy were not only consumers of art, but also its creators, shaping the artistic landscape of their time. Literature also flourished during this period, with the wealthy playing a crucial role in its development. The rise of vernacular languages allowed for new forms of storytelling that resonated with broader audiences. Wealthy patrons frequently sponsored poets and writers, commissioning works that celebrated their deeds and values. The Arthurian legends, for example, found favor among the nobility, embodying ideals of chivalry, honor, and courtly love. These stories were not only entertainment, but also served to reinforce the values that defined the lives of the elite. The role of music in medieval society cannot be understated. The wealthy were significant patrons of musicians, supporting the creation of both sacred and secular music. They hosted grand celebrations where minstrels and troubadours performed, further enhancing their social prestige. Music served as a means of expressing identity, with the elite often commissioning compositions that celebrated their lineage and accomplishments. The blending of musical styles across cultures added depth to the rich tapestry of medieval life. In addition to the arts, the wealthy engaged in various intellectual pursuits. The medieval period saw the establishment of universities, which became centers of learning and scholarship. Nobles often sent their sons to these institutions, where they could study subjects such as philosophy, law, and theology. The education received at these universities shaped the future leaders of society, equipping them with the knowledge and skills necessary for governance and diplomacy. However, the lives of the wealthy were not solely defined by their cultural pursuits. They faced numerous challenges, including the ever-present threat of political upheaval. The feudal system created a landscape fraught with rivalries, as noble families vied for power and influence. The rich were often embroiled in conflicts, leading to a culture of alliances and betrayals. Marriages were strategically arranged not just for love, but as tools for political maneuvering, ensuring that families could fortify their positions and secure their legacies. In times of conflict, the wealthy were expected to take up arms. The rich had the means to maintain private armies of knights and soldiers, allowing them to defend their lands and assert their authority. Warfare was a prominent aspect of noble life, with battles fought not only for territory, but for honor and prestige. The tales of chivalric heroism that emerged from these conflicts became integral to the identity of the medieval elite, shaping their self-perception and the expectations of their peers. The Black Death, which swept through Europe in the mid-14th century, marked a significant turning point in the lives of the wealthy. While the rich initially seemed insulated from the ravages of the plague, the widespread devastation had profound economic and social consequences. Labor shortages resulted in a shift in power dynamics, as surviving peasants demanded better wages and working conditions. The wealthy, who had long relied on a rigid social hierarchy, found themselves challenged by a newly empowered lower class. In the aftermath of the plague, the rich had to navigate a changing landscape. The consolidation of wealth became increasingly important as families sought to maintain their status amid shifting societal norms. The rise of the Renaissance in the late medieval period also influenced the lives of the wealthy, as new ideas about individuality, humanism, and the value of education took root. The rich began to invest in the arts and sciences, patronizing scholars and artists who would shape the future of European thought. Throughout this period, the wealthy also faced moral and ethical dilemmas concerning their wealth. While they were often seen as benefactors of society, the stark contrast between their opulence and the struggles of the lower classes led to a growing discourse on social responsibility. The Church preached the virtues of charity and humility, urging the wealthy to act justly and protect the vulnerable. Many wealthy individuals responded to these calls, establishing charitable foundations and supporting social initiatives aimed at alleviating poverty and suffering. As we examine the lives of the rich in medieval times, it becomes clear that their existence was a complex interplay of privilege and responsibility. The wealthy navigated a world filled with expectations, challenges, and opportunities for cultural engagement. Their legacies, shaped by both their actions and the societal context of their time, continue to resonate in our understanding of history. In conclusion, the life of a rich person in medieval times was marked by a rich tapestry of cultural exchange, political intrigue, and social responsibility. They were not merely figures of wealth. They were integral players in the shaping of society, influencing art, literature, and thought. Their experiences reflect the complexities of a dynamic era where the interplay of power, culture, and morality created a legacy that endures to this day. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the lives of the medieval elite. Until next time, may your nights be filled with the echoes of history's whispers. As we delve deeper into the lives of the wealthy in medieval times, it's crucial to explore the significance of leisure and recreation in shaping their identities and social interactions. While the wealthy were often burdened with the responsibilities of land management, political maneuvering, and social obligations, they also had ample opportunities for relaxation and entertainment, which played a critical role in their lives. One of the most popular pastimes among the medieval elite was hunting. This activity was not just a means of procuring food. It was a deeply ingrained social ritual that showcased skill, status, and camaraderie. Wealthy nobles would gather for organized hunts, often in expansive forests designated as royal hunting grounds. These hunts were lavish affairs, complete with trained hounds and horses, and sometimes even falcons. The thrill of the hunt served as both a test of prowess and a way to bond with fellow nobles. The ritual of hunting was laden with symbolism. It was an opportunity for the rich to assert dominance over nature, as well as over their peers. Success in the hunt was often celebrated with feasting, where the spoils of the hunt were served in grand style. The camaraderie fostered during these events was crucial for building alliances and reinforcing social hierarchies among the wealthy. In addition to hunting, various forms of sport and competition were integral to leisure activities. Tournaments and jousting events were particularly popular, drawing large crowds and serving as spectacles of bravery and skill. Nobles competed for glory, and these events were often accompanied by elaborate festivities, including music, dancing, and feasting. Tournaments became arenas not only for physical prowess, but also for demonstrating chivalric values, such as honor and loyalty. The wealth and resources of the nobles allowed for the creation of elaborate games and pastimes. Chess, for instance, became a favored game among the elite, representing strategy and intellect, qualities esteemed in noble society. It served as a social activity where nobles could engage with one another, showcasing their wisdom and strategic thinking. The arts flourished during this period, and the wealthy played a crucial role in supporting and participating in cultural activities. Music was a vital component of medieval life, with the upper classes patronizing musicians and composers. Minstrels and troubadours were often invited to courts and gatherings, where they performed songs that celebrated the values of chivalry, romance, and heroic deeds. The rich enjoyed a variety of music, from courtly ballads to lively dances, enriching their social gatherings with both entertainment and cultural expression. The patronage of the arts extended beyond music. The wealthy commissioned painters and sculptors to create works that adorned their homes, churches, and public spaces. This artistic expression was a reflection of their status and taste, allowing them to leave a lasting legacy. The creation of illuminated manuscripts, with their intricate designs and vibrant colors, also became a way for the rich to showcase their wealth while preserving knowledge for future generations. Social gatherings were a cornerstone of elite life, serving as opportunities for networking and reinforcing social bonds. Banquets and feasts were central to these gatherings, where the wealthy would showcase their culinary delights and extravagant displays of food. The presentation of a feast was an art form in itself. Lavishly decorated tables, elaborate dishes, and fine wines were all part of the spectacle. The act of sharing a meal was laden with meaning, as it fostered loyalty and reinforced social ties among the elite. The etiquette surrounding these gatherings was complex and strict. Seating arrangements were meticulously planned, with the highest-ranking guests afforded the best positions at the table. The manner in which one ate, conversed, and interacted with others was carefully monitored, as these behaviors were indicative of one's social standing. The dinner table became a microcosm of the social hierarchy, with each participant's behavior scrutinized, reflecting their upbringing and refinement. Significantly, the lives of the wealthy were also marked by a commitment to philanthropy. The medieval elite often felt a moral obligation to support the less fortunate, a notion deeply rooted in the teachings of the Church. Many nobles established charitable foundations, funded hospitals, and provided for the poor in their communities. This practice of giving was not only a reflection of compassion, but also a strategic move to enhance one's reputation and secure favor with both the church and the populace. Religious life was central to the existence of the wealthy. Nobles were often deeply involved in the church, attending services and participating in religious festivals. Their wealth allowed them to make substantial donations to monasteries and churches, solidifying their spiritual standing within their communities. The building of grand cathedrals and the commissioning of elaborate altarpieces were common practices among the wealthy, as these acts of devotion served to demonstrate their piety and secure a favorable place in the afterlife. The role of pilgrimage was also significant. Many wealthy individuals undertook journeys to holy sites, embarking on pilgrimages as acts of devotion and penance. These journeys were often grand affairs, complete with retinues of servants and guards. The act of pilgrimage was seen as a way to attain spiritual merit, and the wealthy often used these opportunities to showcase their piety to their peers. Despite the apparent opulence of their lives, the rich were not immune to the social and political upheavals of the time. The medieval period was marked by numerous conflicts, both internal and external, that could disrupt the lives of even the most powerful. Wars and revolts posed constant threats, and the wealthy had to be prepared to defend their lands and titles. The feudal system created a landscape of shifting alliances and loyalties. Noble families often engaged in power struggles, with marriages and alliances being formed and dissolved in the pursuit of greater influence. The rich were expected to navigate this complex web of relationships, requiring astute political acumen and an understanding of the nuances of power. The rise of the merchant class posed challenges to the traditional authority of the nobility. As trade expanded and cities grew, wealthy merchants began to gain influence, often challenging the established social order. This shift led to tensions between the nobility and the emerging bourgeoisie, as both sought to assert their power in a changing landscape. The rich had to adapt to these shifts, often forming alliances with merchants or engaging in trade themselves to maintain their status. The Black Death in the 14th century marked a turning point in the lives of the wealthy. The catastrophic loss of life led to labor shortages, empowering surviving workers to demand better wages and conditions. As the social order began to shift, the wealthy had to grapple with the realities of a changing economy. The feudal system, which had long dictated relationships between classes, began to erode, forcing the rich to reconsider their roles in society. In the wake of the plague, many wealthy individuals turned to new opportunities for investment and economic growth. The rise of a more mobile, wage-earning peasantry allowed the elite to rethink their strategies for maintaining power. Land ownership continued to be important, but the growing importance of trade and commerce began to reshape the dynamics of wealth accumulation. As the medieval period progressed, the Renaissance began to take root, bringing with it new ideas and cultural shifts. The wealthy became significant patrons of the arts and sciences, supporting the works of thinkers like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. This flourishing of creativity and intellectual inquiry was a reflection of the changing attitudes toward wealth and power. The rich increasingly sought to distinguish themselves through education and cultural patronage. The ideals of humanism took hold, emphasizing the value of individual achievement and the pursuit of knowledge. This shift in perspective influenced how the wealthy viewed their roles in society, leading to a greater emphasis on personal legacy and cultural contribution. In conclusion, the life of a rich person in medieval times was marked by a rich tapestry of leisure, cultural engagement, and social responsibility. The wealthy navigated a complex landscape filled with opportunities for entertainment, artistic expression, and political maneuvering. Their legacies were shaped not only by their wealth, but also by their relationships, values, and the societal context in which they lived. The interplay of privilege and responsibility defined their existence, leaving an indelible mark on history. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the lives of the medieval elite. Until next time, may your nights be filled with the echoes of history's whispers. As we journey deeper into the lives of the wealthy in medieval times, it is essential to explore the nuances of their social interactions and the intricate networks of relationships that defined their existence. The rich were not just isolated figures of power. They were part of a complex web of alliances, rivalries, and social obligations that shaped their daily lives and influenced their decisions. Courtly life and social hierarchies. At the heart of noble life was the court, an elaborate social structure where the wealthy gathered to exchange ideas, engage in politics, and display their status. Attendance at court was essential for the elite, as it provided opportunities to cultivate relationships with influential figures, including the king and other nobility. The court was a stage for social performance, where etiquette dictated every interaction. The rich would dress in their finest garments, showcasing their wealth through elaborate styles and accessories. Court life was characterized by intricate ceremonies and rituals. From the grand entrance of the monarch to the formal presentation of guests, every moment was carefully choreographed. Nobles competed for attention and favor, with social status often determined by proximity to the king or queen. The dynamics of power were fluid, and those who could master the subtleties of courtly behavior were best positioned to advance their interests. Beneath the surface of this elaborate social dance lay a complex hierarchy. Titles and ranks dictated not only where one sat at the banquet table, but also who could speak to whom. Nobles were acutely aware of their place within this structure, and the slightest misstep could lead to social ostracism. The wealthy often engaged in gossip and intrigue, using information to bolster their positions and undermine rivals. Marriage and alliances. Marriage was a critical component of noble life, serving as a means to secure alliances and consolidate power. Arranged marriages were the norm, with families negotiating terms to benefit their respective interests. Daughters were often seen as pawns in these arrangements, and their marriages could profoundly affect the fortunes of their families. For the wealthy, a good marriage was one that brought land, wealth, or political influence. The practice of marrying daughters to powerful lords or wealthy merchants became a strategic tool for advancing familial interests. These unions were often accompanied by elaborate dowries, which further underscored the importance of wealth in the marriage market. While love was rarely the primary consideration, the emotional dynamics of these marriages could vary widely. Some noble couples developed genuine affection over time, while others remained estranged, bound by duty rather than desire. The lack of personal choice in marriage could lead to tensions, especially when the expectations of producing heirs weighed heavily on both partners. The birth of children was a momentous occasion for wealthy families. Sons were particularly valued, as they would inherit titles and lands, thus continuing the family lineage. The birth of a healthy heir was celebrated with feasting and festivities, while the loss of a child could lead to profound grief. Daughters, while important for alliances, were often married off young, sometimes before they reached their teenage years. Education and upbringing. The education of noble children was another crucial aspect of their upbringing. Sons of the wealthy were typically sent to live with guardians or tutors, where they received a formal education that prepared them for leadership roles. Subjects such as history, philosophy, mathematics, and languages were considered essential for future rulers and knights. The education system was largely dominated by the church, with monasteries and cathedral schools serving as the primary centers of learning. Daughters, on the other hand, received a more limited education focused on domestic skills, including sewing, cooking, and household management. While some noble women pursued learning in literature and music, their education was often geared toward preparing them for their roles as wives and mothers. The influence of education extended beyond academic subjects. It also encompassed the cultivation of manners and social graces. Noble children were taught the importance of etiquette, which would prepare them for the complexities of courtly life. Mastery of conversation, proper behavior, and the ability to navigate social situations were essential skills for the wealthy, ensuring their success in the intricate social networks they inhabited. Religion and spiritual life. Religion was a cornerstone of life for the wealthy, shaping their values and guiding their actions. The church held immense power during the medieval period, and the nobility often aligned themselves closely with religious institutions. Wealthy individuals frequently made significant donations to monasteries and churches, believing that such acts would secure their place in heaven and bolster their reputations on earth. Religious observance was integral to daily life. Nobles attended Mass regularly and participated in the liturgical calendar, celebrating feast days and religious festivals with enthusiasm. The rich often engaged in acts of piety, such as prayer, almsgiving, and pilgrimage, seeking to demonstrate their devotion and secure divine favor. Pilgrimages to holy sites were particularly popular among the wealthy. These journeys allowed nobles to connect with the broader Christian community and express their faith while also providing opportunities for social interaction. Wealthy pilgrims traveled with retinues of servants and guards, showcasing their status even on the road to spiritual enlightenment. The construction of lavish churches and cathedrals was another way the wealthy expressed their devotion. These monumental structures served as symbols of both religious faith and social standing. The commissioning of intricate artwork and the support of religious orders often reflected the rich's desire to leave a lasting legacy. Economic influences on wealth. While the lives of the wealthy were often characterized by opulence, their fortunes were closely tied to the economic realities of the time. The feudal system shaped the distribution of wealth, with land ownership remaining a primary source of power. Nobles relied on the labor of serfs and peasants who worked their lands, and the wealth generated through agriculture was essential for maintaining their lifestyles. The rise of towns and trade during the medieval period began to shift the economic landscape. Wealthy merchants and traders emerged as influential figures, challenging the traditional power of the nobility. The expansion of trade routes allowed for the exchange of goods, ideas, and culture, creating new opportunities for wealth accumulation. The wealthy began to engage in trade themselves, investing in burgeoning markets and seeking to diversify their income sources. The development of a monetary economy further transformed the lives of the rich. As coinage became more widespread, the wealthy engaged in commerce, investing in trade ventures and seeking profits beyond their landholdings. This shift allowed for new forms of wealth generation, as the rich began to accumulate not just land, but also capital. Challenges and conflicts. Despite their wealth and influence, the rich faced numerous challenges during the medieval period. Political instability, territorial disputes, and conflicts with rival noble families were constant threats. The feudal system created a landscape of alliances and enmities, where betrayal and shifting loyalties were commonplace. Noble families often found themselves embroiled in wars over land and power. The need to defend one's territory led to the maintenance of private armies, as wealthy nobles hired knights and soldiers to protect their interests. The experience of warfare was integral to noble life, with battles fought not only for land but also for honor and prestige. The constant threat of rebellion among the lower classes posed another challenge for the wealthy. Discontent among peasants could lead to uprisings, and the rich had to navigate the delicate balance between maintaining their privileges and addressing the grievances of the common people. The aftermath of events like the Black Death saw a shift in power dynamics, as surviving workers demanded better wages and conditions, leading to tensions between the classes. Legacy and influence. As we reflect on the lives of the wealthy in medieval times, it becomes clear that their legacies were shaped by a complex interplay of wealth, power, and social responsibility. The rich were not merely figures of luxury. They were integral players in the broader narrative of medieval society. Their actions influenced cultural, political, and economic developments, leaving an indelible mark on history. The grand castles, magnificent cathedrals, and exquisite works of art that remain today stand as testaments to the wealth and influence of the medieval elite. Their patronage of the arts and commitment to education helped foster a rich cultural landscape that would resonate for centuries to come. In conclusion, the life of a rich person in medieval times was a multifaceted experience defined by privilege and responsibility. The wealthy navigated a world filled with social intricacies, political maneuvering, and cultural engagement. Their legacies, shaped by their actions and the societal context of their time, continue to reverberate in our understanding of history. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the medieval elite. Until next time, may your nights be filled with the echoes of history's whispers. As we continue our exploration of the lives of the wealthy in medieval times, it is essential to delve into the intricate social custom and cultural practices that shaped their identities and relationships. The rich were not just affluent individuals. They were part of a complex social fabric defined by elaborate rituals, deep-seated traditions, and the expectations of their peers. Social customs and etiquette. The social customs of the medieval elite were governed by a strict code of etiquette that dictated behavior in various settings, particularly at court and during social gatherings. Understanding and adhering to these unwritten rules was crucial for anyone wishing to navigate the upper echelons of society. The wealthy were acutely aware of their social standing and the implications of their actions, which could elevate their status or lead to disgrace. At banquets and feasts, for instance, seating arrangements were meticulously planned. The most esteemed guests were seated closest to the host, often at the head of the table, while those of lower status were placed further away. This hierarchical seating reflected not only the social order, but also the respect afforded to individuals based on their titles and accomplishments. The way one ate, conversed, and even gestured was scrutinized, as nobles were expected to exhibit grace and refinement at all times. The act of dining itself was a performance. Meals could stretch for hours, featuring multiple courses that showcased the host's wealth and culinary prowess. The presentation of dishes was elaborate, and the wealthy would indulge in extravagant foods, including exotic meats, spiced wines, and intricate desserts. The sharing of food was laden with meaning, fostering bonds among guests and reinforcing social hierarchies. Music and entertainment were also integral to these gatherings. Minstrels, jesters, and performers were often hired to provide amusement, ensuring that the evening was not only a display of culinary excellence, but also a celebration of culture. The performances served to elevate the social experience, allowing the wealthy to showcase their appreciation for the arts and their ability to host grand events. Courtly love and chivalry. The concept of courtly love was a significant cultural phenomenon among the medieval elite. This idealized form of love, often characterized by noble gestures and romantic pursuits, was celebrated in literature and art. The rich engaged in the rituals of courtly love, which emphasized chivalry, respect, and devotion. Knights, in particular, were expected to embody the ideals of chivalry, demonstrating bravery, loyalty, and honor. These values were not merely personal virtues. They were integral to the social fabric of noble life. The wealthy often participated in tournaments and jousts as a means of displaying their martial prowess and adhering to the chivalric code. Victories in these competitions were celebrated, enhancing one's reputation and social standing. However, the romantic ideals of courtly love were frequently fraught with complexity. Many noble marriages were arranged for political gain, leaving little room for genuine affection. As a result, many nobles sought out romantic liaisons outside of their marriages, navigating a delicate balance between personal desires and societal expectations. These relationships often inspired poetry and songs, further romanticizing the notion of love that transcended social boundaries. Fashion and personal grooming. Fashion played a crucial role in the lives of the wealthy, serving as a means of self-expression and a reflection of social status. The elite placed great emphasis on their appearance, often donning garments made from luxurious fabrics such as silk and velvet. The colors and styles chosen were not incidental. They conveyed messages about wealth, taste, and cultural affiliations. The rich often employed skilled tailors and seamstresses to create elaborate outfits adorned with intricate embroidery and embellishments. Accessories, including jewelry, furs, and ornate belts, completed their attire and further showcased their wealth. The ability to dress in the latest fashions was paramount, as it demonstrated an awareness of current trends and an understanding of the social dynamics at play. Personal grooming was also an essential aspect of life for the wealthy. Bathing was considered a luxury, and the rich often had access to private bathing facilities. Perfumed oils and scented soaps were used to enhance personal hygiene and allure. The wealthy took pride in their appearances, as looking polished and refined was not just a matter of vanity, it was an expectation tied to their status. Religion and spirituality. Religion played a central role in the lives of the wealthy, shaping their values and guiding their actions. The church was a powerful institution during the medieval period, and nobles often aligned themselves closely with it. Their wealth allowed them to make significant donations to monasteries and churches, bolstering their spiritual standing within their communities. Participation in religious life was not merely a personal endeavor, it was also a public display of piety. Nobles were expected to attend Mass regularly, partake in religious festivals, and engage in acts of charity. The wealthy often sought to demonstrate their devotion through grand gestures, such as sponsoring the construction of magnificent churches or funding the production of illuminated manuscripts. Pilgrimage was another important aspect of religious life. Wealthy individuals embarked on journeys to holy sites, seeking spiritual enlightenment and absolution for their sins. These pilgrimages were often elaborate affairs, with nobles traveling in style, accompanied by retinues of servants and guards. The act of pilgrimage served as both a personal spiritual journey and an opportunity to showcase one's status in society. Political intrigues and alliances. The lives of the wealthy were intertwined with the political landscape of the time. Nobles were often involved in complex power struggles, vying for influence and control within their regions. The feudal system created a web of allegiances and rivalries, where betrayal and shifting loyalties were common occurrences. Marriage alliances were a strategic tool for the rich, allowing families to consolidate power and secure their interests. Noble families would often arrange marriages between their children to strengthen alliances and create bonds between houses. These unions were not based on love, but rather on political expediency, ensuring that families could fortify their positions and expand their influence. Political intrigue was a constant presence in noble life. The wealthy engaged in diplomacy, forming alliances and negotiating treaties to advance their interests. The court was a hotbed of political maneuvering, where nobles would vie for favor and influence. The ability to navigate these complex dynamics was paramount, as those who succeeded in the court often secured their families' legacies. The impact of war and conflict. War significantly impacted the lives of the wealthy. The medieval period was marked by numerous conflicts, both internal and external, that could disrupt the lives of even the most powerful. The need to defend one's territory led to the maintenance of private armies, as wealthy nobles hired knights and soldiers to protect their lands. Noble families often found themselves embroiled in wars over land and power, with battles fought not only for territory, but also for honor and prestige. The experience of warfare was integral to noble life, as victories in battle could elevate one's status and solidify alliances. However, the consequences of war extended beyond the battlefield. The devastation wrought by conflict could lead to economic hardships, particularly for those who relied on the labor of peasants to sustain their households. The aftermath of war often forced the wealthy to reassess their strategies for maintaining power and wealth, as the realities of a changing landscape became evident. The legacy of the wealthy. As we reflect on the lives of the wealthy in medieval times, it becomes clear that their experiences were shaped by a complex interplay of social customs, political dynamics, and cultural practices. The rich navigated a world filled with expectations and responsibilities, leaving behind a legacy that continues to resonate in our understanding of history. The grand castles, magnificent cathedrals, and exquisite works of art that remain today stand as testaments to the wealth and influence of the medieval elite. Their patronage of the arts and commitment to education helped foster a rich cultural landscape that would resonate for centuries to come. In conclusion, the life of a rich person in medieval times was a multifaceted experience defined by privilege and responsibility. The wealthy navigated a world filled with social intricacies, political maneuvering, and cultural engagement. Their legacies, shaped by their actions and the societal context of their time, continue to reverberate in our understanding of history. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the medieval elite. Until next time, may your nights be filled with the echoes of history's whispers. As we delve even deeper into the lives of the wealthy in medieval times, it is essential to explore their domestic lives, family structures, and the intricacies of their households. The homes of the rich were not merely residences. They were sprawling estates that served as centers of power, culture, and social activity. Domestic life and household organization. The grand estates of the wealthy were often self-sufficient entities, designed to accommodate the needs of their owners and their extensive retinues. Typically, these estates consisted of a main manor house or castle, surrounded by farmland, gardens, and various outbuildings. The architecture of these residences reflected the wealth and status of their owners, with features such as high stone walls, large great halls, and elaborate decorations. Inside these homes, the organization was hierarchical and complex. At the top of the household hierarchy was the lord and lady, who held ultimate authority over the estate. They were responsible for managing the land, overseeing the welfare of their serfs and vassals, and maintaining the social order. Their chambers were typically the most lavishly decorated, filled with fine furnishings and tapestries that conveyed their wealth and taste. Beneath the lord and lady were various household staff members, each assigned specific duties. The steward managed the household and its finances, while the chamberlain oversaw the domestic staff and ensured that the household ran smoothly. Other key figures included cooks, maids, butlers, and gardeners, each playing a vital role in maintaining the estate. The wealthy often employed a large number of servants, reflecting both their resources and the social norms of the time. The daily routine of the wealthy was structured around a combination of social obligations, family responsibilities, and leisure activities. Mornings typically began with breakfast, a simple meal that might include bread, cheese, and ale or wine. After breakfast, the lord and lady would attend to their administrative duties, meeting with their advisors and managing the affairs of their estates. Family dynamics and relationships. Family life among the wealthy was shaped by duty, expectations, and the overarching to maintain status. Marriages were often arranged for political alliances rather than love, and the relationships within noble families could be complex and fraught with tension. The wealth of a family was often tied to the alliances forged through marriage, leading to a focus on securing advantageous unions for their children. Daughters were particularly affected by these arrangements, as they were often married off at a young age to secure alliances with powerful families. While some noble women found ways to exert influence within their new households, many were constrained by societal expectations that dictated their roles as wives and mothers. The birth of a healthy heir was a momentous occasion, celebrated with great enthusiasm, while the loss of a child could lead to profound grief. Sons, on the other hand, were typically groomed for leadership from a young age. They were educated in the arts of warfare, governance, and chivalry, preparing them to take on the responsibilities of managing estates and leading troops in battle. The relationship between fathers and sons was often characterized by expectations and pressure, as young noblemen sought to prove their worth and secure their places within the family hierarchy. The presence of extended family members, including aunts, uncles, and cousins, further complicated the dynamics within noble households. These relatives often lived in close proximity, leading to intricate relationships that could foster both support and rivalry. Family gatherings were opportunities for bonding and celebration, but they could also serve as arenas for competition, as members vied for attention and favor. Celebrations and festivals. Celebrations and festivals were integral to the social life of the wealthy, providing opportunities for entertainment, socializing, and cultural expression. The medieval calendar was filled with religious and seasonal festivals, each marked by unique customs and traditions. Nobles often hosted grand celebrations that showcased their wealth and social standing, drawing attendees from far and wide. Feasts were central to these celebrations, featuring elaborate banquets that could last for days. The rich spared no expense when it came to food, serving an array of dishes that reflected their culinary skills and resources. Meat dishes, often roasted and spiced, were the highlight of these meals, accompanied by a variety of breads, cheeses, fruits, and wines. The presentation of food was an art form, with dishes often decorated to impress guests. Entertainment was also a crucial component of these celebrations. Minstrels and troubadours would perform songs and stories that celebrated the values of chivalry and romance, while jesters provided comic relief. Dancing was a popular activity, and the wealthy would engage in courtly dances that emphasized elegance and poise. These festivities allowed the rich to display their cultural sophistication while reinforcing social bonds among the elite. The significance of celebrations extended beyond mere enjoyment. They served as vital occasions for networking and political maneuvering. Nobles would seize these opportunities to forge alliances, negotiate treaties, and strengthen relationships with other powerful families. The social dynamics at play during these gatherings were complex, as guests navigated the intricacies of status and influence, art and patronage. The wealthy played a crucial role in the patronage of the arts during the medieval period. Their affluence allowed them to commission works from talented artisans, supporting the creation of paintings, sculptures, manuscripts, and decorative arts. This patronage was not only a reflection of their wealth, but also a means of leaving a lasting legacy. The commissioning of illuminated manuscripts was a particularly popular form of artistic expression among the wealthy. These beautifully crafted books, often adorned with intricate illustrations and gold leaf, conveyed both religious and secular themes. Wealthy patrons would often have their family crests included in the artwork, ensuring that their legacy was immortalized within the pages of these manuscripts. Similarly, the construction of grand cathedrals and churches was often funded by the rich, who sought to demonstrate their devotion and leave a mark on the spiritual landscape of their communities. The architectural style of these buildings often reflected the wealth and power of their patrons, with soaring spires, intricate stone carvings, and expansive stained glass windows. The creation of these structures served both religious and political purposes, as they solidified the wealthy's influence within their communities. Culinary arts and dining etiquette. The culinary arts flourished among the wealthy, who had the means to experiment with diverse ingredients and elaborate recipes. The rich often employed skilled cooks who had access to the finest ingredients, including exotic spices imported from distant lands. The art of cooking became a source of pride, and elaborate banquets were opportunities to showcase culinary prowess. Dining etiquette was of utmost importance in noble households. The manner in which one ate, conversed, and engaged with others was closely monitored. Table manners were a reflection of one's upbringing and social status, and the wealthy were expected to exhibit grace and refinement throughout the meal. The serving of food was often a ceremonial affair, with dishes presented in a manner that delighted the senses and impressed guests. Drinks were also an integral part of dining experiences. The wealthy often indulged in fine wines, ales, and other beverages, with the quality of the drink serving as a testament to their wealth. Wine was typically served at banquets, and the choice of vintages was a matter of pride for hosts. The act of toasting, raising a glass in honor of guests, was a customary practice that reinforced social bonds and goodwill among attendees. Health and medicine. The health and well-being of the wealthy were often prioritized, as their resources allowed them access to better living conditions and medical care. While the medieval period lacked the advanced medical knowledge we have today, there were still practices in place to address health issues. Wealthy individuals often employed physicians and apothecaries, who provided treatments and remedies for various ailments. The concept of health in medieval society was closely tied to the idea of balance. It was believed that maintaining the right balance of the four humors, blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile, was essential for good health. Physicians would diagnose patients based on these beliefs, prescribing treatments that might include diet changes, herbal remedies, or bloodletting. Wealthy individuals often had access to herbal gardens where they could grow medicinal plants and herbs. These gardens not only served practical purposes, but were also symbols of wealth and sophistication. The rich would often take pride in their ability to cultivate rare and exotic plants, further emphasizing their status. Legacy and influence on society. The lives of the wealthy in medieval times were marked by a profound influence on the cultural, political, and social landscapes of their societies. Their patronage of the arts, commitment to education, and involvement in religious life shaped the values and aspirations of the time. The grand estates and magnificent cathedrals built by the rich served as lasting legacies, leaving an indelible mark on the architectural and cultural heritage of their regions. The stories of noble families, their triumphs and tragedies, became woven into the tapestry of history, influencing the narratives that would be told for generations. The relationships and alliances forged by the wealthy created a complex social structure that defined medieval society. The interplay between power, privilege, and responsibility played a crucial role in shaping the dynamics of the time, fostering a culture that valued loyalty, honor, and prestige. In summary, the life of a rich person in medieval times was an intricate tapestry woven from threads of privilege, duty, and cultural engagement. The wealthy navigated a world filled with social customs, family dynamics, and artistic expression, leaving behind a legacy that continues to resonate in our understanding of history. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the medieval elite. Until next time, may your nights be filled with the echoes of history's whispers. As we explore further into the lives of the wealthy in medieval times, we must consider the impact of evolving societal norms and the changing landscape of power and influence. The medieval period was dynamic, marked by shifts not only in economic structures, but also in social dynamics, cultural exchanges, and the role of the aristocracy. The rise of the merchant class. One of the most significant developments in medieval society was the rise of the merchant class, which began to challenge the traditional power of the nobility. As trade routes expanded and towns grew, wealthy merchants began accumulating significant wealth and influence. This emergence of a new economic elite created tensions between the established nobility and the burgeoning bourgeoisie. Wealthy merchants often sought to emulate the lifestyles of the nobility. They invested in grand houses, adorned themselves with fine clothing, and hosted lavish banquets. The lines between social classes began to blur, as the rich merchant class aspired to the same status and recognition that had long been reserved for the aristocracy. This shift led to a complex interplay of social dynamics, where alliances were formed and rivalries emerged. To secure their status, wealthy merchants often sought noble titles through marriage or purchase. By marrying their daughters into noble families or acquiring land, they aimed to legitimize their wealth and fortify their positions within the social hierarchy. As a result, noble families sometimes found themselves forging alliances with the very merchants they once viewed with disdain. The emergence of this new class, also had implications for the governance of towns and cities. Wealthy merchants often became influential figures in local politics, advocating for their interests and seeking greater representation. This development marked a shift in power dynamics, as the merchant class began to assert its influence over local governance and economic policies. Cultural exchange and the influence of the Crusades. The Crusades, which began in the late 11th century, played a crucial role in shaping the experiences of the wealthy. These military expeditions to the Holy Land not only aimed to reclaim Jerusalem, but also facilitated cultural exchanges between the East and West. The contact with different cultures introduced new ideas, goods, and customs to medieval Europe. Wealthy nobles who participated in the Crusades often returned with exotic treasures, spices, and knowledge that they had acquired during their journeys. This influx of new materials and ideas influenced the arts, cuisine, and even fashion among the elite. The rich began to incorporate Eastern styles into their clothing, adopting luxurious fabrics and intricate designs that reflected their newfound wealth and exposure to different cultures. This cultural exchange also extended to architecture. The introduction of Islamic architectural elements, such as pointed arches and intricate tile work, influenced the design of cathedrals and castles across Europe. The wealthy commissioned new buildings that showcased these styles, further solidifying their status and demonstrating their cultural sophistication. The Crusades also had a significant impact on the religious landscape. The participation of noble families in these campaigns often reinforced their ties to the church, as they sought to demonstrate their devotion and earn spiritual merit. Many nobles made substantial donations to religious institutions as acts of penance for their involvement in warfare, reinforcing their influence within the church. Education and intellectual pursuits. Education among the wealthy in medieval society was essential for maintaining power and influence. The rich often had access to the finest educational resources, enabling them to groom their children for leadership roles. The establishment of universities during this period marked a significant advance in the pursuit of knowledge, and the wealthy were often the primary patrons of these institutions. Sons of noble families were typically sent to universities to study subjects such as law, theology, and philosophy. This education prepared them for roles in governance, military leadership, and diplomacy. The emphasis on education reflected the evolving ideals of the time, as the wealthy recognized the importance of intellectual prowess in maintaining their status. Daughters, while often receiving a more limited education, were also taught essential skills. They learned the arts of household management, embroidery, and music, which were considered valuable for future wives and mothers. Some noble women defied societal expectations, pursuing education and intellectual pursuits in their own right. Women like Hildegard of Bingen and Christine de Pizan emerged as notable figures, contributing to literature and scholarship. The patronage of arts and education became a hallmark of the wealthy. By supporting artists, writers, and scholars, the rich sought to elevate their own status while contributing to the cultural development of society. The commissioning of illuminated manuscripts, sculptures, and paintings not only reflected their wealth, but also their commitment to fostering a vibrant cultural landscape. Religious life and spiritual engagement. Religion remained a cornerstone of life for the wealthy, shaping their values and guiding their actions. The church played a significant role in the lives of the elite, providing spiritual guidance and reinforcing the social order. Nobles often aligned themselves closely with religious institutions, donating generously to monasteries and churches in exchange for spiritual favor. The wealthy participated in the liturgical life of their communities, attending Mass and engaging in religious festivals. These observances served as opportunities for social interaction and reinforced the bonds between the rich and their communities. Nobles were expected to demonstrate their piety through acts of charity, supporting the poor, and funding religious initiatives. Pilgrimage was a popular practice among the wealthy, as nobles sought spiritual enlightenment through journeys to holy sites. Wealthy individuals often traveled in style, accompanied by retinues of servants, and their pilgrimages became public displays of devotion. The act of pilgrimage allowed the rich to connect with the broader Christian community, while reinforcing their status within society. The construction of grand cathedrals and monasteries was another way the wealthy expressed their devotion. These monumental structures served as symbols of both religious faith and social standing. By commissioning elaborate buildings adorned with intricate artwork and sculptures, the rich solidified their influence within the church and left a lasting legacy for future generations. Health, wellness, and medical practices. The health and well-being of the wealthy were prioritized as they had access to better living conditions and medical care compared to the lower classes. While the medieval period lacked the advanced medical knowledge of today, the rich employed physicians and apothecaries who provided treatments and remedies for various ailments. The wealthy often maintained gardens filled with medicinal herbs and plants. These gardens served as both a practical resource for healing and a symbol of status, showcasing the owner's ability to cultivate rare and exotic flora. The use of herbal remedies was common, and physicians often prescribed treatments based on the balance of the four humors, a prevailing medical theory of the time. Access to private baths and hygiene facilities was also a luxury enjoyed by the rich. Bathing was considered essential for health and cleanliness, and the wealthy often indulged in elaborate bathing rituals. The use of scented oils and perfumes became popular, further reflecting their status and commitment to personal grooming. Despite their resources, the wealthy were not immune to the diseases that plagued medieval society. The Black Death in the 14th century devastated populations across Europe, leaving no class untouched. The impact of the plague forced the wealthy to confront their mortality and reassess their place within the social hierarchy. As labor shortages emerged, the balance of power began to shift, leading to increased demands from the lower classes for better wages and conditions. The role of warfare and military obligations. Warfare was a defining aspect of life for the wealthy in medieval times. The feudal system established a culture of military obligation, where nobles were expected to provide military service to their lords in exchange for land and protection. This relationship created a landscape of constant conflict, as rivalries and territorial disputes often escalated into open warfare. The wealthy maintained private armies of knights and soldiers to defend their lands and assert their authority. Training in the arts of warfare began at a young age, with noble boys learning to ride, fight, and lead. Tournaments and jousts became popular venues for demonstrating martial prowess, allowing nobles to gain honor and prestige within their communities. The experience of warfare was not merely a duty, it was a rite of passage for many young noblemen. Battles were fought not only for territorial gain, but also for personal honor. Victories could lead to increased social standing, while defeats could tarnish reputations and lead to social disgrace. The lives of the wealthy were intricately tied to the fortunes of war, as the outcomes of conflicts could significantly impact their wealth and influence. The impact of social change and legacy. As the medieval period progressed, the landscape of power and influence began to shift. The rise of towns and the merchant class, combined with the consequences of events like the Black Death, led to changes in the social structure. The rigid hierarchies that had long defined noble life began to erode, giving way to a more fluid social order. The wealthy had to adapt to these changes, often seeking new ways to maintain their status and influence. Many began to engage in trade and invest in emerging markets, diversifying their sources of income. The accumulation of wealth was no longer solely tied to land ownership. Savvy investments and entrepreneurial ventures became equally important. The legacy of the wealthy in medieval times was marked by their contributions to the cultural, political, and social fabric of society. The grand estates, magnificent cathedrals, and exquisite works of art that remain today stand as testaments to their influence. Their patronage of the arts and commitment to education fostered a rich cultural landscape that resonated for centuries. In conclusion, the life of a rich person in medieval times was a multifaceted experience, characterized by privilege, responsibility, and cultural engagement. The wealthy navigated a world filled with social intricacies, political maneuvering, and evolving norms, leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire and inform our understanding of history. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the medieval elite. Until next time, may your nights be filled with the echoes of history's whispers. As we further explore the complexities of life for the wealthy in medieval times, it is important to examine the roles of entertainment and leisure, which were vital to the social fabric of the elite. The wealthy not only enjoyed their riches, but also utilized them to cultivate a lifestyle that embodied sophistication, culture, and societal status. Entertainment and leisure activities. For the rich in medieval society, leisure was often a carefully orchestrated affair, filled with activities that showcased their wealth and refined tastes. The medieval elite found joy in a variety of pastimes, from hunting to grand feasts, each of which served not only as entertainment, but also as a means to reinforce social bonds and assert status. Hunting and falconry. Hunting was perhaps the most prestigious of leisure activities among the nobility. It was a sport that demanded skill and was laden with symbolism. Hunting demonstrated a noble's connection to the land and mastery over nature. Large hunting parties would be organized, complete with hounds, horses, and sometimes falcons, each element reflecting the wealth and resources of the host. The types of game hunted varied by region and season. In England, deer hunting was particularly favored, while in France, boar hunts were highly esteemed. The act of hunting was not merely about the kill. It was an elaborate social event that brought together members of the nobility, fostering camaraderie and reinforcing alliances. After the hunt, the spoils would often be celebrated with a feast, where the participants would recount tales of their bravery and skill, further solidifying their social ties. Falconry, or the art of training birds of prey to hunt, was another cherished pastime among the wealthy. This sport required patience, skill, and significant investment, making it a favored pursuit of the elite. Owning and training a falcon was a mark of status, and noble families would often compete to showcase their bird's prowess. The rich often used falconry as an opportunity to display their wealth and knowledge of the natural world, inviting others to witness the beauty and skill involved in this noble art. Tournaments and jousting. Tournaments were grand spectacles that drew audiences from far and wide, serving as both entertainment and a means for nobles to display their martial skills. These events typically featured jousting, where knights competed against one another in contests of skill and valor. Wealthy patrons would organize tournaments, offering prizes and acclaim to the victors, while spectators would gather to witness the excitement and pageantry. The jousting tournaments were not solely about individual combat. They often included various events, such as melee competitions and archery contests. Nobles would don their finest armor, often adorned with their family crests, and display their prowess on the field. Victors would not only earn fame and honor, but also the potential for lucrative rewards, including land, money, or even the hand of a noblewoman in marriage. These tournaments served a dual purpose. They were a form of entertainment and a means to reinforce chivalric values. The ideals of bravery, honor, and loyalty were celebrated and embodied by the knights who participated. Tournaments were also an opportunity for nobles to assert their status and showcase their wealth, as the lavishness of the event often reflected the resources of the host. The arts and cultural engagement. The wealthy in medieval times were significant patrons of the arts, recognizing the power of culture to elevate their status and influence. They supported artists, musicians, and writers, commissioning works that celebrated their achievements and values. This patronage played a crucial role in the development of medieval art and literature, fostering a rich cultural landscape that would resonate for generations. Music and dance. Music was an essential component of noble life, and the wealthy often employed musicians to entertain them at feasts and gatherings. Minstrels and troubadours would perform songs that told tales of chivalry, love, and heroism, captivating audiences with their melodies and narratives. The presence of music added to the festive atmosphere, and nobles would often join in dances, showcasing their grace and social skills. Dance was a highly regarded social activity among the elite. The courtly dances of the time were intricate and required practice and elegance. Nobles were expected to be well versed in various forms of dance, as it was an essential skill for courtly life. The ability to dance well could enhance one's reputation and facilitate social connections, making it a crucial aspect of noble etiquette. Literature and poetry. The patronage of literature flourished during this period, with wealthy individuals commissioning poets and writers to produce works that reflected their values and aspirations. The circulation of chivalric romances, allegorical tales, and courtly poetry became prevalent, and many noble families sought to have their stories immortalized in verse. Literature served not only as entertainment, but also as a means of moral instruction. The tales of knights and their quests for honor and virtue resonated deeply with the noble class, reinforcing the ideals of chivalry that governed their lives. The wealthy often hosted gatherings where poets would recite their works, providing an opportunity for socializing and cultural exchange. The development of illuminated manuscripts was another significant cultural achievement during this time. The rich would commission exquisitely crafted books, adorned with intricate illustrations, gold leaf, and elaborate calligraphy. These manuscripts often served as status symbols, reflecting the wealth and sophistication of their owners. They were treasured possessions, passed down through generations as both works of art and repositories of knowledge. Social gatherings and banquets. Social gatherings played a crucial role in the lives of the wealthy, serving as opportunities to strengthen ties within the nobility and showcase their affluence. Banquets were grand affairs, often lasting for several days, where lavish feasts were served to guests. The preparation for such events was extensive, with hosts sparing no expense to impress their attendees. The dining experience was a carefully orchestrated event, reflecting the host's wealth and social status. The presentation of food was an art form, with dishes served in elaborate displays designed to dazzle guests. Exotic ingredients were favored, and the use of spices and herbs, often imported, added to the extravagance of the meal. Seating arrangements at banquets were indicative of social hierarchy, with the most esteemed guests placed closest to the host. The act of sharing a meal was laden with meaning, fostering bonds among the elite while reinforcing social structures. Guests would engage in conversation, discussing matters of politics, culture, and current events, further enhancing their connections. Entertainment during banquets included music, poetry, and storytelling. Minstrels and performers would provide amusement, creating an atmosphere of celebration and camaraderie. The social dynamics at play during these gatherings were complex, as guests navigated their relationships and allegiances, often using these opportunities to negotiate power and influence. Travel and leisure. For the wealthy, travel was often a means of leisure and exploration, as well as a way to solidify alliances. Noble families would embark on journeys to visit relatives, attend court, or participate in festivals and tournaments. Travel during the medieval period was not as straightforward as it is today. It often involved considerable planning and preparation, as well as the logistics of transporting goods and ensuring safety on the roads. Noble families would travel in style, accompanied by their retinues of servants, guards, and sometimes even entertainers. They would utilize horse-drawn carriages or horseback riding, depending on the distance and terrain. The wealthy often stayed in inns or guest houses that catered to their status, ensuring comfort and security during their travels. The act of travel also allowed the rich to engage with different cultures and communities, broadening their horizons and enhancing their understanding of the world. These encounters could lead to the exchange of ideas, goods, and practices, contributing to the rich tapestry of medieval culture. Diplomacy and political engagement. The lives of the wealthy were not solely defined by leisure and entertainment. They were also deeply entwined with the political landscape of the time. Nobles were expected to engage in diplomacy and governance, navigating the complex web of alliances and rivalries that characterized medieval society. The wealthy often served as advisors to monarchs or held positions of power within local governments. They were called upon to represent their regions in matters of state, and their influence could extend beyond their immediate territories. The ability to negotiate treaties, broker alliances, and manage conflicts was paramount for the elite, and many nobles honed these skills through their interactions at court. Marriages continued to serve as strategic tools in these political maneuvers. By marrying their children into powerful families, nobles sought to secure alliances that would bolster their positions and expand their influence. These unions were often orchestrated with careful consideration of the political landscape, ensuring that each match served a broader purpose. The impact of plague and social change. The Black Death, which swept through Europe in the mid-14th century, had a profound impact on the lives of the wealthy. While the rich initially seemed insulated from the ravages of the plague, the widespread devastation led to significant social and economic upheaval. The loss of life created labor shortages, empowering surviving workers to demand better wages and conditions. The aftermath of the plague marked a turning point in the relationship between the wealthy and the lower classes. As the social order began to shift, many nobles found themselves grappling with the realities of a changing economy. The rising demands of peasants and laborers forced the wealthy to reconsider their roles, often leading to tensions and conflicts. In response to these changes, some nobles sought to adapt by investing in new opportunities for economic growth. They began to engage more actively in trade, diversifying their income sources and finding ways to maintain their status amid a rapidly evolving landscape. The rise of a more mobile and empowered peasantry challenged traditional notions of feudalism, prompting the wealthy to rethink their strategies for maintaining power. Legacy of the wealthy in medieval times. As we draw our exploration to a close, it is essential to reflect on the enduring legacy of the wealthy in medieval times. Their lives were marked by privilege, responsibility, and a commitment to cultural and social engagement. The grand estates, magnificent cathedrals, and exquisite works of art that remain today stand as testaments to their influence. The patronage of the arts and education fostered a rich cultural landscape that resonated for centuries. The stories of noble families, their triumphs and tragedies, became woven into the tapestry of history, influencing future generations and shaping the cultural identity of Europe. In conclusion, the life of a rich person in medieval times was a multifaceted experience, defined by social customs, cultural engagement, and political dynamics. The wealthy navigated a world filled with opportunities for leisure and entertainment while grappling with the responsibilities and challenges that came with their status. Their legacies continue to inform our understanding of history, reminding us of the complexities of power, privilege, and societal change. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the medieval elite. Until next time, may your nights be filled with the echoes of history's whispers. As we delve even deeper into the lives of the wealthy in medieval times, it is crucial to explore the roles of hospitality, the significance of social networks, and the intricate relationships that shape the experiences of the elite. Hospitality was not merely a matter of generosity. It was a vital part of maintaining social status and political alliances. Hospitality and its importance. In medieval society, the act of hosting guests was a significant demonstration of wealth and power. Nobles took great pride in their ability to provide for their guests, and lavish hospitality was a hallmark of elite life. When a nobleman invited guests to his estate, the occasion would often be marked by extensive preparations, with kitchens working tirelessly to prepare a feast that showcased the host's resources and culinary prowess. The expectations surrounding hospitality were deeply rooted in the social fabric of the time. Hosts were expected to provide not only food and drink, but also comfort and entertainment. Guest chambers were prepared with fine linens and the best furnishings available, ensuring that visitors felt welcomed and valued. This practice of hospitality served multiple purposes. It reinforced social bonds, allowed for networking opportunities, and provided a platform for political maneuvering. The guest list was often carefully curated. Nobles were keenly aware of the social hierarchies at play and would invite individuals whose presence would enhance their prestige. The dynamics of these gatherings were complex, as guests engaged in conversation, exchanged news, and negotiated alliances. The wealth of a host was often measured by the scale and quality of their hospitality, with the most successful nobles known for their grand feasts and lavish gatherings. Social networks and alliances. The wealthy in medieval times relied heavily on social networks to navigate the complexities of their lives. These networks were built on relationships forged through marriage, shared interests, and political alliances. Nobles understood that fostering connections with other powerful families was essential for maintaining their status and influence. Marriage was one of the primary means of solidifying these alliances. Noble families would arrange marriages not only for love, but also for political gain. A marriage between two influential families could create a powerful alliance, opening doors to greater resources, land, and influence. Daughters were often married off to secure these alliances, while sons were groomed to take on leadership roles within their families. The social networks established through marriage extended beyond the immediate family. Nobles often relied on their extended family, including cousins, aunts, and uncles, to bolster their positions. These relationships could lead to mutual support, as family members worked together to strengthen their collective influence. In addition to familial connections, the wealthy engaged in friendships and partnerships with other nobles. These relationships were often characterized by a sense of loyalty and mutual benefit. Gifts and favors exchanged between friends reinforced bonds and established a sense of obligation. Nobles would often provide assistance to one another in times of need, whether through military support or financial aid. Political engagement and power dynamics. The lives of the wealthy were intricately tied to the political landscape of the time. Nobles were expected to be active participants in the governance of their regions, often serving as advisors to monarchs or holding positions of authority within local governments. The feudal system created a landscape of allegiances and rivalries, where power dynamics could shift rapidly. Nobles were acutely aware of the importance of maintaining favorable relationships with those in power. They would often attend court, where they could engage with the monarch and other influential figures. The court was a place of both opportunity and danger, where the wealthy could negotiate alliances, lobby for their interests, and seek favor. Participation in local governance was also crucial for the elite. Nobles were often called upon to represent their communities in matters of law and order, ensuring that justice was upheld and that the needs of their vassals were addressed. This role reinforced their authority and established their position as protectors of their lands and people. Political engagement was often accompanied by a complex web of intrigue. Nobles had to navigate shifting loyalties and rivalries, and betrayal was not uncommon. The ability to read the political landscape and respond strategically was paramount for maintaining power. Many wealthy individuals were skilled diplomats, adept at negotiating treaties and managing conflicts to their advantage. The influence of religion on wealth and power. Religion played a significant role in the lives of the wealthy, shaping their values, guiding their actions, and reinforcing their social standing. The church was a powerful institution during the medieval period, and nobles often aligned themselves closely with it. Their wealth allowed them to make substantial donations to monasteries and churches, securing their spiritual standing and gaining favor with religious authorities. The wealthy participated in the liturgical life of their communities, attending Mass regularly and engaging in religious festivals. These observances served as opportunities for social interaction and reinforced the bonds between the rich and their communities. Nobles were expected to demonstrate their piety through acts of charity, supporting the poor, and funding religious initiatives. The construction of grand cathedrals and monasteries was another way the wealthy expressed their devotion. These monumental structures served as symbols of both religious faith and social standing. By commissioning elaborate buildings adorned with intricate artwork and sculptures, the rich solidified their influence within the church and left a lasting legacy for future generations. Pilgrimage was a popular practice among the wealthy, as nobles sought spiritual enlightenment through journeys to holy sites. Wealthy individuals often traveled in style, accompanied by retinues of servants, and their pilgrimages became public displays of devotion. The act of pilgrimage allowed the rich to connect with the broader Christian community while reinforcing their status within society. Fashion and identity. Fashion was a significant aspect of life for the wealthy in medieval times. The elite took great care in their appearance, recognizing that clothing served as a reflection of their social status and identity. The rich often donned garments made from luxurious fabrics, such as silk and velvet, and adorned themselves with intricate jewelry. The styles of clothing varied across regions and changed over time, influenced by cultural exchanges and evolving trends. Nobles would often follow the latest fashions, ensuring that their attire reflected current styles and showcased their wealth. Color played a crucial role in fashion. Certain hues, such as purple, were associated with nobility due to the expense of the dyes used to create them. The act of dressing was not merely about aesthetics, it was also a social performance. Nobles were expected to dress appropriately for various occasions, whether attending court, hosting a feast, or participating in religious services. The manner in which one dressed conveyed messages about status, power, and sophistication. Personal grooming was also a vital part of maintaining an aristocratic appearance. The wealthy often had access to private baths and cosmetics, allowing them to cultivate an image of cleanliness and elegance. Perfumes and scented oils became popular, further enhancing their allure. Legacy and cultural contributions. The wealthy in medieval times left behind a rich legacy that continues to influence our understanding of history and culture. Their patronage of the arts fostered a vibrant cultural landscape, leading to advancements in literature, music, and visual arts. The commissioning of illuminated manuscripts, grand cathedrals, and exquisite artworks reflected their commitment to preserving knowledge and supporting creative expression. The stories of noble families, their triumphs and tragedies, became woven into the tapestry of history. The lives of the rich were characterized by both privilege and responsibility, as they navigated the complexities of power, social expectations, and cultural engagement. Their legacies continue to inspire and inform our understanding of the medieval period. In conclusion, the life of a rich person in medieval times was marked by a multitude of experiences that defined their identities and shaped their legacies. The wealthy navigated a world filled with social intricacies, political maneuvering, and cultural engagement. Their lives were characterized by a commitment to hospitality, the cultivation of social networks, and the pursuit of cultural excellence. As we reflect on their experiences, we gain insights into the complexities of power, privilege, and societal change. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the medieval elite. Until next time, may your nights be filled with the echoes of history's whispers. As we continue to explore the multifaceted lives of the wealthy in medieval times, it's essential to delve into the intricate details of their daily routines, seasonal activities, and the roles of festivities and religious observances in shaping their identities. The lives of the rich were not only defined by their wealth, but also by the cultural practices and societal expectations that surrounded them. Daily routines and seasonal activities. For the wealthy, each day was typically structured around a series of rituals and obligations that reinforced their status. Mornings often began with a light breakfast, which could include bread, cheese, and ale or wine. After breakfast, the lord and lady would attend to their administrative duties, which involved managing the estate, meeting with stewards or vassals, and overseeing the daily operations of their lands. Noble women, while often confined to domestic roles, had significant responsibilities in managing the household. They oversaw the servants, ensured that the estate was running smoothly, and were responsible for the education of their children. The lady of the house often occupied a crucial position, particularly in the absence of her husband. This included making decisions about the household's finances, managing supplies, and ensuring the welfare of her family and dependents. The wealth of the nobility allowed for a lifestyle that was both labor-intensive and leisurely. While they engaged in the management of their estates, they also found time for leisure activities. Hunting, as previously mentioned, was a favored pastime and often took place in the afternoons. It was an opportunity for nobles to socialize, engage in friendly competition, and assert their dominance over nature. Seasonal celebrations and festivals. The medieval calendar was punctuated by a myriad of festivals and celebrations, many of which revolved around the agricultural seasons and religious observances. These events provided a welcome respite from the rigors of daily life and offered opportunities for socializing and cultural expression. Harvest festivals. In the autumn, Harvest festivals were celebrated, marking the end of the growing season. The wealthy often hosted grand feasts to celebrate the bounty of the land. These festivities included music, dancing, and games, where both the nobility and the peasantry could partake in the joy of the season. The rich would provide ample food and drink, demonstrating their generosity while reinforcing their social standing. During these celebrations, it was common for nobles to invite their vassals and tenants to join in the festivities. This gesture not only fostered goodwill among the lower classes, but also served as a reminder of the responsibilities the wealthy held towards their subjects. Such gatherings reinforced the feudal bonds that connected the landowners to their tenants, creating a sense of community and loyalty. Religious festivals. Religious festivals were central to the lives of the wealthy, as they provided opportunities for public displays of piety and community involvement. Major Christian holidays, such as Christmas and Easter, were marked by elaborate celebrations that included church services, feasting, and charitable acts. The wealthy would often donate to the church or fund the construction of religious structures as an expression of their devotion. During these festivals, the nobility participated in processions and other communal activities, reinforcing their roles as leaders within their communities. The rich often hosted large gatherings after church services, where they would invite friends and neighbors to partake in the festivities. This not only showcased their wealth, but also solidified their status as benefactors of the church. Weddings and important life events. Weddings were significant social events that brought together families and reinforced alliances. The wealthy often organized elaborate ceremonies that included feasting, music, and dancing. The exchange of vows was accompanied by the display of opulence, with the bride and groom adorned in their finest garments. These celebrations were not only personal, but also political, as they strengthened ties between noble families. The richness of the wedding festivities was directly proportional to the family's wealth, and the success of these events was often measured by the grandeur of the celebration and the number of distinguished guests in attendance. Births and other important life events were also marked by significant celebrations. The arrival of a male heir was particularly celebrated, with festivities that could rival those of weddings. Conversely, the death of a family member was marked by mourning rituals, and the wealthy often commissioned elaborate funerary rites to honor the deceased and ensure their legacy lived on. The role of sports and games. In addition to hunting, the wealthy engaged in a variety of sports and games that provided entertainment and opportunities for social interaction. Jousting tournaments, as previously discussed, were a primary focus of noble entertainment. However, other forms of competition were also popular among the elite. Board games and strategy. Games such as chess and backgammon were played by the wealthy, serving as both entertainment and a means of intellectual engagement. Chess, in particular, was favored among nobles as it mirrored the strategy and tactics of warfare. Playing these games allowed the rich to demonstrate their mental acuity and strategic thinking, which were valued traits in a leader. These games were often played in the company of friends and family, fostering social bonds and providing an opportunity for leisurely conversation. The wealthy would gather around a table, engaging in friendly competition while discussing matters of importance, reinforcing both personal connections and political alliances. Physical competitions. In addition to intellectual pursuits, physical competitions were also celebrated. Archery contests and foot races were common, allowing the wealthy to showcase their skills and athleticism. These events often took place during festivals or gatherings, where nobles could engage in friendly rivalries and display their prowess. The importance of physical fitness was recognized, as it was believed that a noble should be prepared for warfare at all times. Training in combat skills and athletic competitions were seen as essential components of a well-rounded noble education. The impact of art and patronage. The patronage of the arts was a defining feature of wealthy life in medieval times. Nobles understood that supporting artists, musicians, and writers not only enriched their cultural landscape, but also reinforced their status. By commissioning works of art, the wealthy could showcase their sophistication and taste. Wealthy patrons played a significant role in the development of medieval art. They commissioned paintings, sculptures, and decorative arts that adorned their homes, churches, and public spaces. These artworks were often laden with symbolism and served to convey messages about power, piety, and identity. The commissioning of illuminated manuscripts was a particularly notable aspect of artistic patronage. Wealthy individuals would hire scribes and artists to create beautifully illustrated books, often containing religious texts or works of literature. These manuscripts were not only functional, but also served as status symbols, reflecting the owner's wealth and commitment to education. The influence of music and literature. Music flourished under the patronage of the wealthy. Nobles employed musicians to perform at their gatherings, enhancing the festive atmosphere. The rich often supported the creation of new compositions, allowing talented musicians to thrive. Music served as both entertainment and a means of cultural expression, with noble patrons favoring works that celebrated their values and ideals. Literature also benefited from the patronage of the wealthy. Nobles commissioned poets and writers to produce works that reflected their experiences and aspirations. The circulation of chivalric romances and allegorical tales became prevalent, with stories that celebrated the ideals of honor, bravery, and courtly love resonating deeply with the elite. The rich often hosted gatherings where poets would recite their works, providing an opportunity for socializing and cultural exchange. These gatherings reinforced the importance of literature in noble life and allowed the wealthy to engage with the ideas and narratives that shaped their identities. The interplay of power, privilege, and responsibility. Despite their wealth and influence, the lives of the rich in medieval times were not without challenges. The responsibilities that came with their status often weighed heavily on their shoulders. Maintaining their estates, managing relationships with vassals, and navigating the complexities of political alliances required astute leadership and foresight. The burden of responsibility. The wealthy were expected to act as protectors of their lands and communities. This included providing for the welfare of their tenants and serfs, ensuring that justice was upheld and that the needs of the lower classes were met. Nobles were often called upon to resolve disputes, manage resources, and maintain order within their territories. The role of the noble as a protector was deeply ingrained in the feudal system. The loyalty of vassals and tenants depended on the lord's ability to fulfill his obligations. Failing to provide for the needs of the community could lead to discontent and unrest, undermining the very foundations of noble power. Social change and adaptation. The medieval period was marked by significant social change, particularly in the wake of events such as the Black Death. As labor shortages emerged and economic conditions shifted, the wealthy had to adapt to a new reality. The rise of the merchant class and the demands of the peasantry challenged traditional power structures, forcing the elite to reassess their roles within society. Many wealthy individuals responded to these changes by diversifying their sources of income. They began to engage in trade and invest in emerging markets, recognizing that reliance solely on land ownership was no longer sufficient for maintaining their status. This adaptability was crucial for navigating the evolving landscape of power and privilege. Legacy of the wealthy in medieval times. As we reflect on the lives of the wealthy in medieval times, it becomes clear that their experiences were shaped by a complex interplay of privilege, responsibility, and cultural engagement. The rich navigated a world filled with social intricacies, political maneuvering, and evolving norms, leaving behind a legacy that continues to resonate in our understanding of history. The grand estates, magnificent cathedrals, and exquisite works of art that remain today stand as testaments to the wealth and influence of the medieval elite. Their patronage of the arts and commitment to education fostered a rich cultural landscape that would influence generations to come. In conclusion, the life of a rich person in medieval times was a multifaceted experience, defined by social customs, cultural engagement, and political dynamics. The wealthy navigated a world filled with opportunities for leisure and entertainment, while grappling with the responsibilities and challenges that came with their status. Their legacies continue to inform our understanding of history, reminding us of the complexities of power, privilege, and societal change. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the medieval elite. Until next time, may your nights be filled with the echoes of history's whispers.